Overcomer Ministry is a conservative Pentecostal Christian ministry that is run by Ralph Gordon Stair, better known as Brother Stair. Brother Stair was born in 1933 in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and later went on to become an ordained Methodist minister. He later left organized religion and moved to the South in the 1950s, claiming that God had told him to move there because it would be the safest place for Christians in the end time. In 1978, Brother Stair purchased a motel in Walterboro, South Carolina, and encouraged any who would follow him to vow to poverty, donate all that they could to the ministry, sell the rest of their possessions, and move into his community. In this conservative community, women wear long skirts and men wear long pants and collared shirts. Labor is divided among stereotypical gender lines, and the community is nearly completely self-sustained. While women work the domestic chores such as cleaning, cooking for their communal meals, and making clothing, the men are most often found on the farm doing manual labor such as planting the crops and tending to the livestock. The community consists of about 70 individuals who all live in handmade houses or mobile homes in or near the property, whose main system of transportation is bicycles. They all meet Sunday for worship in the community tabernacle at 10 a.m., where Brother Stair preaches and broadcasts his message over the radio. They also have daily prayer times at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Brother Stair's teaching are often heavily influenced by frequent predictions of world-changing or world-ending events that are a side effect of God's displeasure with his people. He has come into the spotlight multiple times over the years for his prophecies falsely predicting nuclear confrontations in 1988 and that Reagan would not complete his term as president. After leaving organized religion and moving down south, Stair began his own teachings and aimed to spread them as far as possible. His peak radio coverage was in the 1990s when his messages were broadcasted over 120 stations. As of 2014, Stair broadcast from 5 free satellites and 7 international satellites, as well as live listening through the Overcomer Ministry website. His message goes to listeners all across the United States and areas of South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, Israel, Russia, India, and Asia. In 2016, Stair was given a sizable donation which allowed him to purchase hundreds of hours per day of airtime and created one of the most expensive shortwave radio broadcasts in history. His $1.5 million budget was funded by his apparently large audience of listeners. Despite residents of the Overcomer Ministry having to surrender their possessions, cut ties with people outside the compound, and being stripped of their free thinking, Stair claims that his organization is not a cult. To examine a paranormal event, we must first understand exactly what paranormal claim is being made. To do this, we must be as detailed and precise as possible to characterize and summarize whatever situation we may be analyzing. We must also understand the context of the claim that is being made. To understand the context, we must understand the circumstances that form the event, setting, or idea, and the terms on which it can be fully understood and assessed. Additionally, we must look for an explanation that may be provided by questioning things such as the invocation of unknown forces, potential argument fallacies, and whether or not Occam's razor can be applied. Furthermore, we must consider all available options to see if any explanation is provided outside of the realm of paranormal and in the realm of reality. We must also understand whether or not the claim is testable by seeing if the event was just an occurrence by chance or if it can be replicated. Finally, we must ask if the claim that has been made has been tested before. This can be done by collecting all evidence that is offered, determining if the evidence is anecdotal or not, questioning how reliable and valid the measures of the evidence are, and seeing if all available evidence is used. The claim to be analyzed for this specific case is whether the Overcomer Ministry is or is not a cult. Some contextual evidence that is helpful to analyze this claim is comparing the properties of a cult to the properties of the Overcomer Ministry. By definition, a cult is a group or social movement whose participants exhibit excessive devotion to a leader or cause and that embrace unethical techniques of persuasion and control. The members of the Overcomer ministry that live on the farm do not exhibit excessive devotion to their leader and self-proclaimed prophet, Brother Stair, but all claim to be waiting on the coming of Christ. These overcomers are not known to promote any specific agenda for Stair, although he is seen as the individual in the highest of power. Stair himself, despite denying that he has a cult following, fits almost every characteristic of being a cult leader, such as having a charismatic personality, being self-appointed as the leader, perceiving himself as messianic, and being the sole interpreter of policy for the overcomers. Some of the most prominent markers of cults are also fulfilled, such as recruiting and fundraising, which is done conveniently through the ministry website, an authoritarian group structure, totalitarian rule, the acquisition of exclusive knowledge, and specific daily tasks that occupy the majority of the members' days. The group also eliminates members outside social networks, induces suggestibility, subservience, and dependency through diet and rituals, encourage individuals to conform to the group, and develop a group identity. When determining if the organization is a cult or not, it is most important to view the evidence from an outside perspective because cult leaders and members will deny being part of a cult almost 100% of the time, displayed in this case by Brother Stair's constant denial of cult activities. When searching for a paranormal explanation, the invocation of unknown forces is important to examine. In this case, the only potential unknown force is the claims made by Stair that he had been spoken to by God himself. Other than that, there are no unknown forces for this situation. The only potential argument fallacies could be the denial of the organization's status as a cult, which is not strong enough evidence to change any of the properties classifying it as such. Occam's razor could be applied to this case because it was fairly simple to make the assumption of a cult even before all evidence was presented. Alternate explanations for this organization could be that it is simply a religious organization in which all members dress similarly and do their daily activities together, such as their chores and meals. The claim that this organization is a cult could be tested by having experts analyze the group and its activities and determine if they believe that the properties of a cult are fulfilled. This claim has been tested, and expert analysis determined that the organization is in fact a cult. Some key evidence for this conclusion was the testimony from 3 women who had left the group who spoke to the Post and Courier about their experience. One claims she now has a hard time attending church services. Another tells of how wearing pants felt unfamiliar to her after living for over a decade under Stair's dress code. And the third woman says she feels robbed of an education after attending school through the ministry in which they did not teach any science and she did not earn a high school diploma. The first-hand witness accounts of these women's experiences are almost entirely anecdotal because they were based on each of their personal accounts. Because these are first-hand accounts and stories of their experiences in the group, the measures are very reliable and sound. Through all of the sources that I have used and information that I have gathered, I believe that all available evidence has been used. In conclusion, the Overcomer Ministry from Walterboro, South Carolina is a cult. In my research for this topic, all initial signs pointed to cult, with the most prominent evidence being the brochure that is easily accessed through their website. It begins by telling of the details of the organization and life on the farm, and states, "You do not join yourself to us, as we are the church that only God can join together by the Holy Spirit." It then gives the information for how one might join the community, saying that you will be questioned as to your family situation and willingness to be separate from them and other things of the world. It continues with information about the crops and livestock on the farm, and calls Brother Stair the man of God who has sole discretion to judge the legitimacy of need and to direct distribution to satisfy the need. It states that residents recognize expulsion from the community for rebellious behavior, and those who choose to leave are not entitled to receive any of their belongings back. Despite the blatantly cult-like information that is presented, it is hard to believe that members still deny being a cult. The fate of this organization is questionable but may live on forever because Brother Stair has been arrested twice with 10 different criminal counts of crimes ranging from sexual assault to kidnapping to burglary. During his first arrest, he only served 77 days for 2 criminal counts, and on January 24th of this year, Stair was released after only 37 days of prison on a $750,000 bail that was likely paid by his non-cult followers.